Hello all, welcome to this tutorial on Microsoft Excel. In the first part of this tutorial, I'm going to show you a basic overview of Microsoft Excel, how to navigate your way around Microsoft Excel program, and also how to enter how to perform some basic operations, entering some values and so on. Okay, so please open Microsoft Excel program. So if you're using a different version, try to find a way to create a new Microsoft Excel file. Okay, in the Microsoft Excel language, this basically means I'm creating a blank workbook. So I'm going to choose this option here. I just clicked on it, and now I see a blank workbook. This blank workbook right now has one worksheet. Okay, if we wanted to create more worksheets, all I need to do is just click on the plus sign right here, and now this workbook has two sheets. Okay, what if I wanted to rename the sheet? It's very simple. Just go there, double click, and type over the name. As simple as that. And once you finish typing, press enter. The worksheet name is now sample. Okay, on the top of the screen right here, you also see that you have a bunch of commands. Microsoft uses the term ribbons to refer to these individual categories. So you have ribbons, and then you have a bunch of commands under each ribbon. Okay, so home ribbon, you have an insert ribbon, and of course you have ribbons for page layout, formulas, data, review, and view. Okay, so if all these commands under these ribbons sound a bit too much, don't worry, we won't be using all of them. And as you start using Excel program more and more, you will familiarize yourself with most of these commands over time. Okay, it takes time. So now let's switch back to the home ribbon, which is where we'll be most of the time. And also notice that above this ribbon, you see a nifty feature of Microsoft Excel. This is basically a quick access toolbar. Here you'll find commands that are most often used, and you basically get to decide what commands you want to display right here. Of course, you have save button right there. You also have buttons for undo and redo. And if you want to add more, let's say that you find yourself printing a lot, print preview and print, you can add it to the quick access toolbar. Okay, and what if some of the commands that you use are not present here very often? No matter, just go down all the way to the end here, choose more commands, and you can actually pick the command. Every command that Microsoft Excel ever has is pretty much here. Okay, so right now you see all the commands that are very popular. You also see commands under multiple categories. Okay, for the time being, let's say that I use charts a lot, create a lot of charts. Okay, all I need to do is add this, right? Press OK, and bingo. So I have the create chart button up here on the Excel quick access toolbar. Okay, so these are some of the basics of navigating your way around the program. Now let's start entering some values. Okay, and to enter values, of course, Microsoft Excel organizes the program by organizes the program. Microsoft Excel basically uses a table, right? This is basically a bunch of columns, as you can see here, named A, B, C, D, E, F, and so on, and rows. This is the way you enter values. And let's say that if you want to enter values here, enter a value here, it's basically a cell. The name for this is a cell at the intersection of a column and a row. And of course, what is the address of the cell? B2. So anytime if you hear myself saying that please go to B2 or C3, I'm basically talking about go to the intersection of B and 2, or the intersection of C and 3. That's a cell at C3. Okay, so now let's start entering some values. So let's start at C3 since you're already there. Okay, type in, let's say, a name, a long name, Jane Guthrie. Now you find that the space that we have here in terms of the column width, the name actually overflows it, goes over it. Let's see what happens. Press enter. So right now it seems all right, even though a bit unsightly. What happens if I type in another name here? Let's say Jane Doe. Okay, press enter, and suddenly you see that the information that's here on C3, some of it at least seems to have disappeared. Did it mean MS Excel deleted some of this information? Not really. If you select C3, up top here, you can actually see in the formula bar the actual value that Microsoft Excel has here. Okay, so JNQ3 is there, but part of it is not displayed anymore because we don't have enough column width to display that information. Okay, so if you want to have enough column width, it's very simple. You can go to the top here, right? And once you see the sign, once you see the sign change from this arrow to this, you can double click to automatically resize the column width, or you can manually move the column width, right? Let me try double clicking, and you'll see that the column width will change just enough so that it can display all the information that's there in that particular cell. Okay, so we entered some values. This is basically alphanumeric. This is basically names. What happens if we enter some numbers? Okay, so let's type in 1, press enter. Okay, we can continue typing. Let's say that I want to type in a numbers from 1 to 10. One option is, of course, I can continue typing 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. But if I don't want to type in automatically, Excel has a very nifty feature. Let's say that I type in 1 and 2, right? You go to C5, select the cell, right? By clicking on it. You press down the shift key, select C6. So you'll see this rectangular box. And if you move the cursor around, you see that when you come all the way to the bottom right hand corner, you see this plus sign. That's a nifty sign right there. So when you see that plus sign, just grab it by left clicking and then drag it down. Okay, now you can actually see that if you drag it down, Excel automatically fills the information for you. Okay, so this feature is called autofill for Microsoft Excel. What happens if I just have a number 1, right, and I try to do autofill out here until the number changes to plus all the way down? No wonder, because Microsoft Excel doesn't really know what the next step is. It assumes that you just want a copy of all of this. So if you have 2 numbers, and if Microsoft can figure out a pattern, then you see the pattern here. If it's only a 1 number, then this is what you get, because in this case Microsoft Excel cannot figure out what you want it to do. Okay, so it just simply copies the information that's on the first cell. What happens if I type this in? Let's say Jan to represent January. And also notice that the numbers are automatically right aligned and the text is automatically left aligned. Okay, of course you can change that by going up here to the alignment button, but I'd like to leave it as the default settings. Okay, so what happens if I typed in Jan, right? Then I move the cursor around until I see this plus sign, drag and drop. Bingo. So in this case, Microsoft recognizes that you're trying to type in months of a year, right? And it basically tried to auto-fill in the relevant information in the next cells. Okay. So now this is autofill. Let's try to see how we can format the numbers. So this is, I selected cell 1, and let's say that I want to format not only the first cell, but also these 20 cells right here from C5 all the way to D14. Okay, so all I need to do is basically select the first cell, right? Left click and drag and select. That's it. Right now I've selected 20 cells, and all I need to do is choose format, and I do that by right clicking. And remember, as in many of the Microsoft programs, right click is your best friend for context sensitive commands. So I'm going to choose format cells, and of course I want this to be a number, so I'm going to choose number. Okay, and let's say that I want a single decimal point, so I choose 1 decimal point, and you can see how the value changes as you change. If I change it to 2, I have 2 zeros right here. Okay, and I can even have Excel specify how I want negative numbers to be displayed, so that the default is -1, 2, 3, 4, which is what you're familiar with. But another elegant option, at least in my mind, is that to display a negative number in red ink and in parentheses. So I'm going to choose this. Let's see what happens. You don't have to do it, but I'd like to display my negative numbers in red ink in parentheses. Okay, And of course, you also notice that before I press OK, you notice that there are lots of other options that you have here for formatting a cell. You can keep it as a general. You can of course choose currency. It can be a date, time, percentage, and so on. Okay, it can be text as well. And you also have other options here, how you want the text to be aligned. Okay, and you have the font information, the border. Do you want a border around the cell? Do you want to fill the cell with some color? Do you have any protection? Do you want protection mechanisms? Do you want to enforce? I'm gonna leave all of them at default, not do anything. Just switch back to number. Only change I did is choose number 1 decimal point. Press OK. So the numbers now change from 1 to 1.0, 2 to 2.0. Okay. So let's just go to the first button here. Let's go to D5. Select the cell and click on it. Sorry, double click on it. Select and double click, and you basically are presented with an option to edit the cell. So this way, if I just wanted to add 1, let's say 11, that's great. I can just add it. But in this case, I just want to replace the entire content of the cell. So what I want to do is, let's say press -2. Okay, press enter. So I typed in -2. I'm pressing enter, and as you can guess, because I already chose the option in the previous command to display negative numbers, right, as numbers in parentheses with a red font color. So this is what you see. Okay, so if you actually select the cell, you can see up top here on the formula bar that the actual number is -2. Okay, as I mentioned, if you want to edit the contents of a cell, you double click, right, and you select the information, then you navigate your way around the cell. Okay, or you can edit directly here, so you know what's happening for the cell D6. Okay, first of all, make sure that you're on the right cell when you're changing something, and also make sure that you don't accidentally overwrite if that's not your intention. Okay, for example, let's say that I go to Jan. Okay, maybe I made a mistake and I wanted to change this to the full January. I want to spell the full month name. Of course, I can try to double click edit, right, and type in the missing values. I just edited the month to January. Press enter. Okay, but if I just select the cell and start typing in, you're basically replacing the cell, contents of the cell. So that's a bit risky, so be careful. If you don't double click, you're not just editing it, you're replacing the contents of the cell. Okay, so I'm going to try to undo the change I made. So I go up top here, right, undo typing. So bingo, so I got my February. So let me go back in here, double click, now enter the information. That's it. So I've got what I wanted. So this is some of the basic ways you can enter information in Microsoft Excel. Okay, so if I wanted to, let's say, delete this worksheet, we don't need this worksheet, so I'm going to try and delete it. This is something that is important for you to keep in mind. Let's say I'm deleting this, right? I'm going to right click, delete. Okay, so again, interesting, you see that there's an interesting error message right here. You cannot undo deleting sheets, and you might be removing some data. Okay, this is something that's very important that you need to remember. While most of the times what you do, you can undo, and it keeps getting better. You want to be very, very careful before deleting a worksheet, because once you delete it, it's gone. You cannot undo it. Okay, so I don't need the data, so yes, I'm pretty sure that I need to delete it. So I press delete, and you notice that you cannot undo this. That information is gone. Okay, so now we're going to work with sheet 2. We'll rename it something else, but we'll do this in the next tutorial. Thank you.